Hey there folks, Graham here and welcome to the channel. Today I'd like to talk to you about Guitar Rig 6 Pro, but don't be fooled by the name. It could equally be called Synth Rig 6 Pro because you can use it on those as well. I'm going to do a little overview of Guitar Rig 6, showing you what's in it and how it works. But first I'm going to dive in with a short demonstration to show you some of the things you can do with it and what it sounds like. Here's a short loop that I put together earlier, which includes a bass line from my Behringer Neutron, a melody from the DeepMind 12 and a drum track that I programmed. So here's the original loop with no effects. Sounds okay, but it lacks a bit of warmth, oomph, whatever you want to call it. I'm sure there's some things we can do to spice it up a little bit. So over here on the left, you'll see I've got Guitar Rig 6 inserted as an effect on the audio. And this is the audio from the Neutron and the DeepMind. So I've opened up Guitar Rig 6, and as you can see, I've got a number of effects loaded in here. I've got a reverb, I've got a phaser, I've got a rotator, a bit like a Leslie organ, and I've got a delay. Now what I'm going to do is play through the loop I played a second ago, and as it plays through I'm going to add in these effects. First I'm going to add in some reverb, then we'll add in the phaser on top of that, then we'll add in a bit of rotator, and then finally the psych delay. So here we go. We'll start with the dry loop, and then you'll see me switch on the effects as we go through the loop. I think you'll agree that's quite a marked difference, and you can get some really good effects going here, and it works really well on synths as well as on guitars, which it was primarily designed for. So what actually is Guitar Rig 6 Pro? Well, essentially it's a VST effect plugin. It doesn't make any sounds on its own, it just applies those effects to any audio sources that you input, like in the demo we just saw. You can use it as a standalone application applied to live audio coming in, so you could use it in a live setup, or you can use it as an insert effect in your DAW on any tracks that you've got set up. In your DAW it can be applied to basically any input source. You can use it on audio from external synths, you can use it on your VST synths, you can use it on your drum or vocal tracks, and of course you can use it for guitars, which is what it was primarily designed for. So what's in it? What sort of effects do you get that you can play with? Well, what you get is a whole host of classic guitar amp emulations along with effects pedals and a load of other tools. It's basically like having a whole studio of different guitar amps and effects pedals at your disposal at the touch of a button, and the ability to build them into custom rigs rather than having wires and pedals everywhere across your room. So let's take a little more detailed look at what's inside. If I click on components, the first thing you'll see come up is a list of the amplifiers: AC Box, Bass Pro, Citrus, Chicago, Bass Invader, etc. All of these are emulations of classic amps. So for example, I believe the Lead 800 is effectively an emulation of a Marshall amp, and for example the Jazz amp I believe is an emulation of a Roland Jazz Chorus 120 amp. Each of these amps are then matched with their relevant cabinet, and they can be customised using some of the features here under the cabinet section. We've then got delays and echo effects, 7 of those. The psych delay you heard earlier on in the demo, we've got a quad delay, a tape echo delay, and various others. Under distortion, there's 15 distortion pedals effectively, with names like Big Fuzz, Dirt, Screamer, Sledgehammer, all of them applying very, very different types of distortion. There's then 15 dynamics effects ranging from compressors, noise gates, tube compressors to vintage compressors like the VC160 or VC76. There's 5 different equalizers, from parametric equalizers to standard graphic equalizers. There's then a whole host of filters, 11 of those, with things like wah-wah pedals and formant filters. There's then some modifiers such as LFOs and envelope generators, which can be used on synths as well as guitars. A huge amount of modulation sources. So for example, we've got choral, ensemble, flanger, chorus, phasers, etc. The rotator we were using earlier on in the demo, which gives a sort of a Leslie organ effect. There's then 5 different types of pitch control, 12 different types of reverb, from spring reverb, studio reverbs, vintage reverbs, etc. And then 7 different types of special effects, such as ring modulators, beat slicers and gators. And then finally there's 4 tools here which allow you to modify the signal path of how everything is running through Guitar Rig. In addition, if we go over to presets, there are 1200 different presets of ready-made custom rigs combining different combinations of amps and effects pedals, and you also have the ability to build and design your own custom rigs. So the one I used in the demo is one that I had put together myself, and then I've saved this as Evolution Effects Rack, and as you can see here it says user to show that that's a user defined rack that I've designed myself. And finally there's some other tools up the top, such as a tuner, a metronome. There's also a tape deck that allows you, that should come up down the bottom, a tape deck that allows you to sort of live record and play back things, which may be of use for practicing. And there's also access, if I click on here, to 16 macro buttons which can be assigned to any of the controls on the effects or amps in your rig for easy and quick access. Also, all of these controls have the MIDI learn feature, so you could assign them to knobs and faders on any MIDI key controller you have, or for example I have an FCB 1010 MIDI pedal board which can also be used to trigger and control some of the effects. So how do you use it, and how do you build these racks of effects pedals and different amps? Well, it really is very simple to use. All you're effectively doing is in the blank space over here on the right, this is where you build your rig or your rack, and effectively you just drag in the items you need. So for example, if I said I wanted to use this Lead 800, which is like a Marshall amp, I would just drag that. Oh, there we go. I would just drag that in, and there I have my amp with its cabinet underneath, and I can change all the various controls as I would be able to on the amplifier, and then I can also change sort of where the microphone would be. So do I want to have the microphone right up next to the cabinet to get that pure sound, or do I want the microphone further out in the room to pick up more of the ambience of the room? So it really does react as if you are recording from a real amp in a real studio. I can then drag in my effects. So if I have a delay, I can bring in, for example, this delay. I can go over to distortion, I can bring in a distortion pedal, I can go into my modulators, I can bring in a phaser, etc. And so what this is then like having in front of me here is having a Marshall amp, or a Lead 800 as they call it, with 3 guitar pedals on the ground in front of me that I can turn on and off at will. So it really does act like a virtual guitar rig stroke pedal board, but as we're showing here in this video, is eminently good as well on synthesizers. So why would you use it on synths and not just on guitars, which is what it was designed for? Well, first of all, it's a great way of adding new effects and creating cool new soundscapes with your synths without having to go out and invest in lots of extra external gear, loads of different pedals, etc. you've got them all here in one place. Secondly, a lot of synths don't come with that many onboard effects, especially the older analog synths, and they can sound very dry and they need something to bring them to life. And so Guitar Rig just again gives you access to all of these different effects in one place. Now your DAW, for example, I'm using Cubase here, may already be loaded with different effects from reverbs and delays and bit crushers, etc. But the beauty of this setup is that normally in your DAW you have to go through and insert each of them as individual effects, and then you have loads of pop-up windows with all these different effects that you're trying to control. Whereas here you can have everything in one place. There is only one inserted effect, Guitar Rig 6 Pro. All the other effects are contained inside of it, so they're all there. There's just one pop-up window with all your effects sitting there in front of you. This, I think, is where I believe Guitar Rig 6 to be really, really good. As I said earlier, it's like having a massive pedal board sitting in front of you with all the controls at your fingertips or at your feet if you're using a pedal board. And as mentioned earlier, there's also 16 assignable macros which you can then link to, for example, the knobs and faders on your MIDI controller. And I think you'll agree from the demo at the start that you can get some really good effects going here, and it really can make a difference to the sound. And really it just gives you additional ways in which to explore, create, design sounds. Well, that's about it. I just wanted to show you that Guitar Rig 6 isn't just for guitars, and you don't even need to own a guitar or know how to play one if you want to take advantage of the effects here. I actually bought Guitar Rig 6 because I started, over my shoulder, I started learning to play the electric guitar, but I soon found, as we've demonstrated today, that it has many other uses outside of guitars. If you've got any questions at all on this, then please feel free to leave them in the comments section below, and I will do my best to answer each and every one of them. Or indeed, if you just want to leave any other comments, then please do so, as any and all feedback is greatly appreciated. Also, I hope you've enjoyed this video and found it helpful or useful. If you have, then please consider liking, subscribing and ringing that bell, as it really does help me to grow the channel and continue to produce videos like these for you. But for now, I've been Graham. Take care and catch you later.